Nam Myoho-renge-kyo, 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 Nam Myoho-renge-kyo.
Hi, I'm Margaret, and this is the website where we take Buddhist philosophy and practice and apply it to the concerns of everyday life. Today, I want to talk about the cluster of blessings that's brought to us by Myoho-renge-kyo. I'm going to talk about what they are and how they work in our lives. Suffering is caused by a number of things. Earthly desires that give rise to suffering, negative karma, ignorance, which blinds us to what we are at our core, the evils and impurities of this world, delusions and worries, and the illusions of birth and death. Now, Nichiren says, suffer what there is to suffer, and enjoy what there is to enjoy. Regard both suffering and joy as facts of life, and continue chanting Myoho-renge-kyo no matter what happens. So, if we're suffering, why continue to chant? So let's look at why it's so important we continue chanting no matter what happens. Nichiren writes that Bodhisattva's superior practices, one of the four bodhisattvas that lead the bodhisattvas of the earth, received the water of wisdom of the mystic law from the thus come one Shakyamuni, and causes it to flow into the wastelands of people's lives in the evil world of the latter age. This is from the writings of Nichiren Daishonin. Then, in the heritage of the ultimate law of life, Daisaku Ikeda says that the 5 characters of Myoho-renge-kyo embody a cluster of blessings brought by the bodhisattvas of the earth, disciples of the Buddha in his true identity. So what are these clusters of blessings, and how do they work in our lives? The mystic law, Myoho-renge-kyo, has the power to burn away earthly desires that give rise to suffering by lessening our attachment to them. If you're firmly attached to something, you're going to suffer if you lose it. But if your attachment to it is loosened and you can take it or leave it, then you just simply don't suffer in the same way. Often, we're attached to physical belongings, such as a home or property, or something given to us. This can guarantee suffering, as life always changes and nothing is forever. For example, a house or a home might be destroyed through earth changes or fire, as is happening in Hawaii just this week. So let's look at a relationship. You might be attached to having a relationship be working in a certain way. And being attached to a relationship being a certain way certainly can guarantee suffering. It doesn't allow for the other person to be themselves, and will certainly give rise to conflict, and probably to a difficult relationship at the very least. As the practice reduces the identification with these things, we come to rely on them less and less, and come to identify with our core, which is the mystic law, more and more. The second of the blessings is that the mystic law can illuminate the darkness of ignorance in our lives. This ignorance obscures the most important thing to our happiness, that we are one with the mystic law at our core, and so have the great power to create our lives as we wish them. Once we're aware that we're one with the mystic law, then we also understand that we're eternal. And I'm going to discuss this point later, since I think it's one of the greatest blessings. The mystic law can nurture all things with abundant life force, unperturbed by any obstacle. And you've probably met someone who is more advanced in the practice, who, when you talk about your concerns regarding an obstacle, just smiles and says, "Congratulations, you have something to chant about." That person knows you will never be deadlocked by any obstacles if you sit down and chant with determination about your concerns. Fourth, the mystic law can dispel the clouds of karma, that negative karma we've brought with us into this life. This is the wonderful experience of being able to turn poison into medicine, rather than continue to suffer from that negative karma your whole life long. We've seen experience after experience in the World Tribune, in Living Buddhism, in descriptions at meetings, where practitioners have turned their negative karma into something of value and turned their lives from suffering into joy. Fifth, the mystic law has the power to sweep away all delusions and worries and establish a state of absolute freedom that's never deadlocked. Over time, we let go of our fears and worries as we test the practice over and over and come more and more to rely on the rock of the mystic law at the core of our lives. And finally, the mystic law can eliminate the illusions of birth and death, which allows us to face both birth and death with joy and without dread. Once we understand that we're truly eternal, we know that birth and death are different aspects of our eternal existence. And as we practice, we loosen our attachments to the earthly desires that make us want to live and our attachment to our body. This attachment to the body can be extremely strong. And when we feel that we are our body, then the fear of death arises inevitably. Of course, you can guarantee that that's going to give rise to suffering, as no one is going to escape death. But through the practice, we come to know that we're not our bodies, but rather a spiritual being who has borrowed these bodies for a while and will let it go. We loosen our attachment to our body, profoundly understanding that it is time limited and has a used by date, but that we continue the cycle of birth and death for eternity. With the great blessings that can come to us when we chant, we see why it's important to continue chanting no matter what happens. You can turn negative circumstances around to become something positive, and will come to change yourself so that all of life works better. Your awareness expands, so you come to live the truth of life, that you're one with the mystic law and have absolutely nothing to fear. Most of all, you will be relieved of the fear of death as you come to know that you're eternal. So, in summary, I've identified and discussed the cluster of blessings brought to people who chant Myoho-renge-kyo. And to just recap those, the mystic law has the power to burn away earthly desires that gives rise to suffering. Myoho-renge-kyo can illuminate the darkness of ignorance in our lives and can nurture all things with abundant life force, unperturbed by any obstacle at all. The mystic law can dispel the clouds of our negative karma. And it has the power to sweep away all delusions and worries and establish a state of absolute freedom that's never deadlocked. And finally, the mystic law can eliminate the illusions of birth and death. A really good reference for this topic is the heritage of the ultimate law of life. I have contacted the SGI to see if it's in their bookstore, but I haven't heard back from them yet. Now, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your comments, your likes, your dislikes, things you'd like to hear about. I'm really interested in your opinions. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.